we didn't have emails. It was everything was by phone or in person on paper. We just didn't have all of these tools, which makes it a totally different experience, really.
Hello, and welcome back to the Retire While You Work podcast. I am Carson Odom, wealth advisor here at Adams Wealth Partners. We've got Myles Zuger, another wealth advisor here at Adams Wealth Partners, and Jeri Anne, the director of operations. And we were just reminiscing a little bit because today's topic revolves around technology. Just throwing it back to whenever my household got its, I think first computer was in the late 90s, and I'm thankful to be a millennial, but I can remember some things before the day and age of so much technology, like dressing an envelope, putting a stamp on something, knowing how to write a check. And I think it's one of those things where more and more people don't know how to do those things, which is kind of sad. And then also hearing it's kind of strange to me, like hearing someone tell me that they're born in like 2012 or 14. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that people are born that late and just like are old. Somebody born in 2014 is 10 years old, and that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
But not to age ourselves. But anyway, back on the topic of finance related, we've got, technology's had a big impact in the world of personal finance and the world of investing, really probably over the past 10 years, maybe 15 years have been a major shift, even in the broker world, of being able to kind of DIY and even have an account on your own to be able to potentially invest in the stock market and, have and buy any stock that you want. And then there's the outcome of ETFs, and mutual funds and added diversification through that layer. But then all the way down to, in today's day and age, personal finance and tracking your own expenses, tracking your own investments, and all the sorts of different types of software out there. It has come so far over the past decade, for the most part for the better, but also it's one of those things where we're all sometimes we are too connected, and it can kind of fall into that realm with your personal finances too. Sometimes you can be too connected when the best thing you can do is just forget about it, let it do its thing. But so
I mean,
Myles, go ahead, Jeri.
well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's also a little overwhelming. There's so many like tools out there now. There's so many to choose from. I mean, back before we had all of that, it was a different way of doing things, but it was simple. Now there's just, you got to pick which one, you got to learn how it works. You got to do some work to get it set up, all the things. I mean, it's great once it's all done, but it's like,
Yeah, I think
and the finance industry, I think, has historically been behind other industries and technology. It took them longer to get more caught up
yeah.
in
I was
just what's offered to people, and as well as like internally at like financial firms, the technology that's used.
Yeah, I think there's so much out there that can be overwhelming. It's for the average person, it's about finding a tool, maybe two or three that work best for you and you're able to fit into your everyday life without it being overwhelming and you feel like you have to check them constantly. I think the more you can put on autopilot and maybe look at it once a month, twice a month, and just to kind of get a checkup, the better. But Carson and Jeri, kind of to your point, it's like you can be so plugged into where you can be at this point checking your portfolio every second and knowing how much you're up that day, how much you're down that day. And I think that can negatively affect people when you have a couple days like we've had this week when the market was down. I mean, a couple percent, and you're looking at it, seeing how much money you're down, even though that's only temporary. But you can kind of get caught up on that and feel like you need to react to that. Whereas,
Yeah.
I mean,
And back when you only before, all technology and you were allowed to have online access and all that stuff, you would only hear from clients when they got their statements once a month, because then they'd say, oh, I lost this much, or I made this much, or however, but now it's every day somebody can react to something and reach out to us.
yeah. I mean, in the middle of the day, I mean, they can turn the TV on or pull up an app and see that the market's down and call us and see if they need to be making any changes to kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
Also with just emails and stuff, it's like, you know, back when we didn't have, I mean, this is really dating myself, but we didn't have emails. It was everything was by phone or in person on paper, you know, we just didn't have all of these tools, which is makes it a totally different experience, really.
Yeah, it
Having
does.
worked in both, do you feel like which is better? I'm sure they both have, you would probably say they both have their pros and cons.
It was easier to put work behind you back then because you weren't still connected. Like now I'll still answer emails at night
Mm-hmm.
or on the weekends or whatever. You didn't have that. There was no way to do that. Um, it's much easier now and just the information that you have now that's available. And I mean, the way that we used to have to trade stocks or mutual funds or whatever was we had to write it down on a piece of paper, like on a ticket, and walk across the office, hand it to somebody who would then enter it into some system we didn't have access to make the trade. And that's how it worked. Now, I mean, you can sit at your desk while you're on the phone with somebody and make a trade on your computer. I mean, it's like night and day.
Honestly, even on the phone or on your phone these days.
Yeah, right.
Phone
Yeah,
is
right.
just kind of wild to think about. I even personally for myself, you know, back on the topic of staying too connected, even in my own personal accounts, I download the statement once a month and I save it. But that's basically all I do to check in on my account. I try not to even look at it on a daily, absolutely not on a daily basis, really not on a weekly basis. I just save my statement. Sometimes I'm not even mentally looking at the dollar value.
Yeah,
I
right.
just save the statement, PDF statement, and move on. And I just try to just completely zone out because I know most of my stuff is long-term retirement money. So let it ride. There is 0 point of me looking at it now or 6 years from now. It is
Yeah,
just
you're
what I
exactly
do.
right.
Um,
I do not, and this is maybe, I don't know, I work in this industry and I purposely do not look at my 401k statement because I'm just like, I will maybe once a year. Just because I'm the same way. I know that I'm not going to touch it. I just need to let it grow. So what's going to help if I'm looking at it all the time?
I feel like I look at probably stuff at least once a day, whether right or wrong. And I don't know why. I just
Now,
like,
my joint account, our joint
yeah,
accounts, like just taxable accounts, I will, because I can look at it in 2 seconds on my, with just our software. I mean, I look at that often.
and I think that's part of it. I think it's because I'm already like, I'm logged in. I can click on it. I can type my name in and click on it, and it's right there.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know how. I don't
exactly.
think I would do that every day if I
I
wasn't
would not.
sitting here
I
doing
agree.
it.
I would
But I would
not.
maybe do it weekly or a couple times a
Yeah.
month. I think. I don't
I
know.
mean, some clients though are like looking at it daily like that, and some are literally never looking at it until like a couple of times a year, maybe, or when we have our meetings or whatever. So that's nice that, you know, they
which
trust us enough.
grand scheme of things, one is not better than the other.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a better investor. The more you look at it, you have to know yourself. And I think what we try to communicate a lot of times is just know yourself. If it does not increase your anxiety by checking it every single day, or if it does not make you want to do something and because the market's down, you need to sell, if it doesn't impact your decision making or anxiety levels, then sure, look at it every day. It can't hurt. But at the same time, somebody who looks at it once a year, more than likely, they're going to be mentally less anxious about their portfolio and money because it's not at the top of their mind. It's one of those things where they're aware of it. They know it's there in the background, but sometimes it's like, watch, if you look, zoom in on a, you know, what the S&P 500 does on a minute basis. Oh, I mean, it's going every which way up and down. But also at the same time, you zoom out on a 1 year level, it looks the same. And generally, 3 out of 4 years, the stock market's up, 1 out of 4, it's down. There's no sense in watching it minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day,
Mm-hmm.
really. So just, I would say my communication on that point would be just know yourself and know your habits. And if it's going to cause any more or less anxiety by paying so much attention to it.
It's kind
And
of like
sometimes
watching.
with the tool, sorry, Miles, sometimes with the tools that are available, you're sort of forced to look at it. Like with something I use that just tracks all my spending and everything. it's got my values of all of my accounts there too. So I just happened to see them on that too. But I mean, that's a good tool though, that, you know, there's several out there that people can use if they want to get like a whole big picture of everything they've got in their checking, savings, investments, loans, whatever out there. You can load all that data in and have it, you know, at your fingertips.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say it's kind of like to Carson's point about knowing yourself. It's kind of like watching the news this time of year with an election coming up. It's you can probably only take so much of that in before you start to get a little stressed and anxious about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I'm the type where I've started doing one of those new websites, not new website, but it's been around for a little while, but where essentially it's more than just spending. You can connect all your accounts and it tracks the value of your house and investments and loans, yada, yada, yada. And I have to update it because I categorize spending, but at the same time, I'm like seeing those values, but I'm not like mentally like really pondering over those values and what they're doing up and down on a daily basis. I personally like it. I like it just because of the fact that, you know, I've got probably 7 or 8 years of spending for our family that I've tracked. And I think it's just cool to watch and compare. And the data is everything there. Is it a little bit overboard? Probably a little bit. But at the same time, on a spending level, I think that's one of the biggest advancements in technology is used to spending. You would have to write down what you spent.
Yeah.
Where old school system is cash, a bucket system. Nowadays, you don't have to have that. You can have all your transactions automatically downloaded into software and categorize it, and you'll get these beautiful charts and graphs about your spending and automatic updates about your budget. It's pretty fantastic. I think that's one of the best advances forward in technology is in the spending.
Well, I use it because like I like to see what we're spending in certain categories. And so like the other day, my husband asked me, we saw something on TV and it was talking about how much the average person spends on groceries right now. And I was like, he was like, I wonder what we spend on groceries. I was like, well, hold on and I'll tell you. And I open it up and I tell him exactly how much we spend, a percentage of our income that we spend on groceries every month. So,
and he probably thought it was a crazy amount.
When you add groceries and like dining out, it was a crazy amount.
Yeah. I felt, I mean, just when things cost more, it's like, I feel like, I mean, so surprised things cost more, but I feel like even the number that I thought I spent on groceries like a couple years ago, and then I like recently looked at that, something similar on a tool that I use, and I was like, it was a lot bigger than I thought it was. I mean, it's like kind of crazy when you factor in. And granted, we had taken a trip in the last couple of weeks, like that was all on there. We ate out a couple times, but still, I do think that like some sort of, I'm going to call it a budgeting app, but it's not like not to the point where people need to be, you know, focused down to the penny what they're spending. But I do think that kind of the tool that we're all talking about here is good just to know what you're spending and where it's going. You don't need to like be hypercritical of yourself and track down to every cent where it's going, but just at least having an idea, I think, is something everybody should do to know where they're spending
we have
money.
Several recommendations. If anyone wants to reach out, we can let you know what we use and give you some tips. There's a lot of different ones out there.
Yep. I think, and on top of this, that's kind of where we're at now. And there's more advancement that's going to come just with where AI's and where it's been at over the past 12 months. It's only going to get better. As you know, internally, we're reviewing tools that are probably going to save who knows how many countless hours internally for different processes that we're doing. It's only going to get better. And there's only going to be, you know, the sky's the limit with what AI can do to help. Maybe there's even a portion of these apps that use it to automatically categorize all your spending, which they kind of already do that. They kind of recognize what categories like Kroger or Publix would, you know, they know that that's for the most part going to be groceries. So that's the next kind of phase. I don't know what it looks like or what else they can do to add value to people's lives, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, AI is definitely the next big thing. I wonder if like people who don't use financial planners and just invest on their own through TD Ameritrade or whatever, I wonder how much AI is going to come into play for them in like giving like advice based on their data through AI. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Personalized financial.
like where they're spending money and like maybe give ideas about where
No,
they could
I
like
mean,
cut back.
even like invest in this
Yeah.
or, giving them like investment, like advice. I wonder if that's something that is coming.
Yeah.
I
I don't
bet
know. I
it
feel
is.
like there was like the first round of like the robo advisors that everybody talks about.
Right.
Like, I don't know, that was probably like 10 years ago at this point now, like
Mm-hmm.
5, 10 years ago. I think they were more based on like risk tolerance. And I would say like, okay, you're based on the way you answer these questions, you're a 60-40 investor or a
Gotcha.
70-30 investor. But to your point, I think as it gets better, I mean, things like that may get a little bit better. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think it always comes back to, and again, we're a little bit biased being as we're financial advisors and planners, but I think it's nice to have somebody to talk to
Oh,
and
absolutely.
like bounce ideas off of and
Well, I mean, the
get
planning
advice.
alone.
Yeah.
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 Even with AI being able to do any sort of planning and know your situation and know your goals, it's absolutely going to happen where it can provide advice on how to get there. However, it's not a relationship. And I feel like we pride ourselves on that's one of the biggest value adds is having a relationship and somebody that you can talk through all of this stuff. And emotions are real, and AI and computers don't understand emotions. They never will. And
Right.
emotions, as much as we want to, kind of ignore emotions to make good quality financial decisions, you still have to be aware of those emotions and you still have to
Mm-hmm.
talk through those emotions. So that's something that a computer's never going to be able to do.
Um, One thing I was just saying as far as like technology and what do y'all have to say about like blockchain and cryptocurrency technology that's out there and what people are doing?
Good question. Unknown, TBD. I think, blockchain's a technology that I think is, there's validity to it. The cryptocurrency side of stuff, which I think that's just a big question mark. There's so much unknown about that. It's obviously has its ups and downs and has taken media headlines and then has gone quiet and takes it back up to storm. It's so wild, that whole industry. But I think it's just totally unknown where cryptocurrency is going to fall. But there is valid technology, the blockchain
Mm-hmm.
technology behind it, that'll probably be an integral part of society one day. But it just, new stuff like that, even with AI, it just takes time. Yeah, there's some big winners like how NVIDIA is basically dominating the whole market of providing the GPUs and racks for companies to run AI models off of.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not just going to be NVIDIA over the next 10 years. There's going to be other players that come forward. So
Right.
Yeah.
same
I
thing on
think
the blockchain side.
with cryptocurrencies specifically, I heard somebody say one time, I can't remember where it was, but they said until the government lets you pay your taxes in Bitcoin, then you're always gonna have to convert it back to US dollars or whatever country you live in to
Mm-hmm.
be able to pay taxes on that money. But it does feel like there's some, yeah, to Carson's point, like there's some validity to that. And it's obviously feels like it's being adopted more and more. But it's not like you can go like, I know there's some place that'll take Bitcoin, but it's not like you can go and spend Bitcoin at Kroger or spend Bitcoin at Publix when you're out grocery shopping. So you still do need
Right.
dollars. And then the uh, blockchain itself, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of advantages to that, but a lot of room to go. And even though it's been around for a few years, I feel like it's probably still in its infancy, and where it ends up is, I mean, who knows? It's like when people started making computers, people thought they were crazy and nobody thought everyone would have a computer in their home. And now you basically with your cell phone have a computer in your pocket that you carry around everywhere you go.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
so hard to
Crazy.
predict what's going to go. And uh, if you knew what that next company was that was going to
Be the
have
next
that
big thing.
technology or be the next Apple or Amazon or Google,
Yeah.
you'd buy all the stock you could in it, but you just don't know.
Yeah. I think kind of one of the last things I can think of related to just technology and finance is also just the ability to have really any website and online calculators to help you. Like, for example, planning calculators of like, okay, if I want to retire at 65 and live off of $80,000 a year, how much do I need to save? Or even just a compound interest calculator.
Yeah,
Whenever you're
absolutely.
prepping for our series exams and our CFP exams, we had to have our uh, what kind of calculator was it called?
Financial
Oh,
A
calculators
those.
financial calculator.
right here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that financial. There it is. We had to have a financial calculator and know how to do the formulas and the calculations. But now you literally type into Google compound interest calculator, and there's a gazillion websites for relatively simple math problems, but it's also they communicate a very, very big message for somebody who has $0 or 20 years old and wants to invest $250 a month for the next 40 years. Oh, that calculation is mind-blowing for someone who's just getting started, but also the types of calculators for Roth conversions or retirement or when to take Social Security, you name it. There's so many things at your fingertips with all the different types of calculations you can do.
Yeah. How much you should put on your 401k and all, I mean, anything that, and still bring home a certain amount. I mean, there's just so many calculators. How much can you afford on a mortgage? Like there's so many different ones out there.
Yep. Or even on that line, if I apply an extra $250 a month towards my principal, how much sooner am I going to pay off my mortgage? Oh, okay. It'll take 3.5 years off your 30 mortgage, whatever. Just that knowledge is awesome. And you would have to, a while back, you would have to know the formula, know how to apply it, pull out a pen and paper.
No, you'd be calling the bank, the mortgage
Yeah.
company saying, what would my mortgage be if I did this? Like,
that's right. Now it's just at your fingertips. You kind of got to find it and know what you're looking for, but you can do it. It's all there.
Yeah.
Maybe lastly, it's just, the more technology becomes prevalent, the more we're using it. I think it's also important to be critical of what you're using and the websites you're going to and sources you're using. Because there's always going to be hackers or cyber criminals out there that are trying to steal your data. And so just making sure that sites you're using are secure or encrypted.
Yes, for sure.
And when you're using some of these tools and having to plug in passwords and stuff like that, just making sure that you have strong, secure passwords that are gonna, hold up if somebody's trying to hack into the tools you're using and steal your data.
Yeah. And there's technology out there too that can help prevent that and let you know if it's been stolen. So
use a password manager.
Yes.
Change your passwords. Don't use the same password for all 400 of your accounts. That is not setting yourself up for success. Use a password manager, change your passwords, watch your credit. The list goes on.
Yep.
Well, cool.
Yeah, that's it, I think.
Well, thanks for joining us. This was a fun episode to talk about technology and finance. Thanks for joining us this time. This is Carson, Myles, and Jeri Anne, and we'll see you next time on the Retire While You Work podcast.
Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.